Hello everyone and welcome to the 5-Minute German A2 exam preparation series. In today's video, we will take a look at the Schreiben part of the A2 exam, in which you have to write an SMS and an email. So we will write 2 SMSs and 2 emails, and I will give you different sentences which you can use in different situations, and I will also be giving you some important tips which will be helpful for you in the exam. I know that this video is a little long, but this is because I will explain each and every part of the A2 Schreiben exam in detail. And if you watch this video till the end, all your questions and doubts will be cleared and you will have no problem in the A2 Schreiben exam. So now let's not waste any time and let's get started. So as you might know that the Goethe A2 exam consists of 4 sections. These are Hören, which is listening, Lesen, which is reading, Schreiben, which is writing, and Sprechen, which is speaking. And in the exam, the Lesen and Schreiben sections are done together. This means that you will get one question paper which contains questions for both Lesen and Schreiben. In this video, we will take a look at the Schreiben section. So the Schreiben or writing section has 2 parts. In the first part, you have to write an SMS. So this is an informal SMS. So you will write it to a friend or someone you know very well. And it should be 20 to 30 words. And it has 12.5 marks. In the second part, you have to write an email. So this is a formal email. And it should be of 30 to 40 words. And this also has 12.5 marks. So you see that both sections have equal marks. Now before we take a look at both of these parts in detail, let's do a quick recap of the A2 grammar concepts, because you will have to use them in the exam if you want to get good marks. So the main grammar concepts which you learn in A2 are connectors, modal verbs in preteritum or past tense, prepositions such as accusative prepositions, dative prepositions, and vexil prepositions, the genitive case, the verb werden and passive voice, and the topic of reflexive. So these are the main grammar concepts of A2. And we can further categorize these topics into connectors and other topics, because connectors is a big part of the A2 grammar. And in connectors, we learn the connector weil, which means because, thus, which means that, ob, which means whether or if, wenn, which means when or if, W-Fragen, which are the W questions, which can also be used as connectors, falls, which means in case, als, which means when, zu, which means in order to, and it is used with the infinitive form of the verb, damit, which means so that, relative Satz and pronomen, which are also used as connectors, and then, which means because. And out of these connectors, when we use the connector then, the verb position does not change, whereas in case of all the other connectors, the verb at second position goes to the end. So I have a complete playlist in which I have made videos on the different A2 grammar concepts, including connectors. I will link it in the description below. You can go and check them out if you want to learn more about the different A2 grammar concepts. Now, since we have gotten an overview of what the different A2 grammar concepts are, so now I will give you the most important tip which will be very helpful for you in the exam. And that is that the first thing that you do in the exam, as soon as you get the answer sheet for the Lesen and Schreiben sections, is that you write down all the A2 concepts on a rough sheet. So you will also get a rough sheet or rough paper where you can practice or write anything that you want, and you will write down all the A2 concepts on that rough sheet, as many as you can remember. So it is possible that you don't remember all the A2 grammar concepts, but write down as many as you can remember, and do this even before you read the questions, because this is very important. So let me show you what I mean. So suppose this is the rough sheet that you have, on which you are allowed to write sentences before you transfer it to the actual answer sheet. And on this sheet, I will write all the different grammar concepts which I have learned, such as the different connectors, relative Satz, modal verbs in past, werden in passive, and so on. So this is the first thing that you will do. And I will show you later when we solve the exams how you will use this. So now let's go back to the Schreiben section And let's start with the first part in which we have to write an SMS. So an SMS is also called Textnachricht, which means text message, or simply Nachricht, which means message. So if you see these words in the exam, then you should also know that this is an SMS. And an SMS, as you know, is an informal text. And an informal text is one which is written to friende or friends. It is also written to people you call by first name. So these are people who are close to you, such as Anna, Thomas, and other people that you know very well, such as close colleagues, Nachbarn, which are neighbors. So these are the people to whom you will write an informal text. Now let's take a look at how you can start an informal text, which is also called unrede. So suppose that you are writing to one male whose name is Thomas, then the normal way to start an informal text is that you will write Lieber Thomas. So you see that you have the ending AR in Lieber, and then you have the name of the person. And at the end, you will also add a comma. If you are writing it to one female whose name is, for example, Anna, then you will write Liebe Anna. So you see, in this case, you only have the ending A, and you also have the comma at the end. If you are writing to more than one person, for example, to both Thomas and Anna, then you will say Liebe Thomas und Anna. So you see that you use Liebe with the ending A, and then you have the names of both the people. And over here, you also have the comma at the end. Now, if you have given the A1 exam, then you would have used this kind of starting, because over there you have to write an informal letter or email. And when you use this starting, then you have to keep in mind that you should use the correct endings. However, since we are going to write an SMS in A2, which is a little bit more informal than a letter or email, that's why I will give you a better way to start. And that is by using hello. So this means that if I am writing to Thomas, then I will simply say hello Thomas. If I am writing it to Anna, then I will say hello Anna. And if I am writing it to more than one person, such as Thomas and Anna, then I will say hello Thomas und Anna. And in this case, I will also have the comma at the end. Now, why do I say that using hello is the better way? This is because this has a few benefits. So the benefit of using hello is that you have a less chance of mistake. And this is because hello remains the same for both male and female. So no matter who you are addressing, you will always use hello. However, with Lieber or Liebe, you have to make sure that you use the correct ending for male and female. So that's why if you are writing an SMS, then you can use hello. However, if you are writing an informal letter or email, then it is better that you use Lieber or Liebe. So this is how you can start an SMS. Now let's see how you can end the SMS, or how you will write the Gruß, which is the greeting. So to end the SMS, you will write Viele Grüße. Now over here, the first characters of both Viele and Grüße are capital. So this is something that you have to keep in mind. And there is no comma after Viele Grüße. Then in the line below, you will write your Vorname, which is the first name. So in my case, I will simply write Usama. So Viele Grüße, Usama. So this is how you can end an SMS. Now there are other ways to end an SMS as well, such as Liebe Grüße, bis bald, or bis dann. However, my suggestion is that you use Viele Grüße because this is the safer option and it works no matter what the topic of the SMS is. Now let's take a look at the personal pronoun that you will use when you write an SMS. So here we have all the different personal pronouns in nominative. Now which personal pronoun will you use when you write an SMS? So normally the second person singular, which is du, and the second person plural, which is ihr, are the personal pronouns which are used for informal texts. However, since an SMS is usually written to only one person, that's why we will use the second person singular personal pronoun, which is du, when we write an SMS. And when you use the second person singular personal pronoun du, then you also have to keep in mind that you use the correct verb forms such as brauchst, kommst, machst, and so on. So these are the verb conjugations for second person singular. So now we have all the information that we need to write an SMS. So let's start with sample test number 1, in which we have the question: Sie haben ein Treffen mit Ihrer Freundin Nina in der Stadt. So in the question it says that you have a meeting with your friend Nina in the city. So Treffen over here means meet up or meeting, and from the name you might have guessed that Nina is a female. And you can also identify this from the word Freundin, which has the ending en. So this is used for a female friend. And another way to identify that this is a female is that if you take a look at the preposition mit, which has been used over here, then you will see that after that we have used ihrer with the ending er. So this is the dative ending for feminine nouns. So this is how you can also identify whether the person whose name is written in the question is a female or male. Then in the next line it says, Schreiben Sie eine SMS an Nina. Write an SMS to Nina. So what do we have to write in the SMS? So the first point is, Schreiben Sie eine Entschuldigung für die Verspätung. Write an apology for the delay. So Entschuldigung means apology, and Verspätung means delay. So you are not going to arrive on time, so that's why you have to write an apology. Then the next point is Erklären Sie warum. Explain why. So we have to give the reason why we are late. And the last point is Schlagen Sie einen neuen Ort und eine andere Zeit für das Treffen vor. So this means that you have to suggest a new place and another time for the meeting. So you see that in the question, the trennbare verb vorschlagen has been used, in which the prefix has gone to the end, and this means to suggest. Then we also have a few requirements, and these are that you have to write 20 to 30 Wörter, so 20 to 30 words, and zu allen 3 Punkten schreiben, which means that in your SMS you have to write to all the 3 points which have been mentioned in the question. So now let's take a look at how we can write the solution to this question. So we will start simply by writing Hello Nina. Now the first point in the question is that we have to apologize for the delay. So in German, if you want to apologize, then you can do it in 2 ways. So you can either say Entschuldigung, or you can say Es tut mir leid, which means I am sorry. So since Entschuldigung has already been used in the question, that's why I will use Es tut mir leid. And one more point that you should know over here is that whenever you start an SMS, you will always start with a small letter. So that's why you see that I have not started with a capital letter. Now after the apology, I can say Ich komme zu spät. I will come late. So I have apologized to Nina, and I am also informing her that I am going to come late. Now the 2 sentences which we have used over here, they are grammatically correct. However, these are A1 level sentences. So these are sentences which you will use when you write the A1 exam. So for A2, it is better that we write a little bit more advanced sentences. Now it is at this point that the rough sheet on which I wrote the different A2 grammar concepts earlier will help me. So what I will do is that I will go through the different concepts that I have written over here. Now when I go through the concepts, then I see that I have the connector thus over here, which I can use to make this sentence better. So what I will do is that I will rewrite this sentence with thus. So I will write Es tut mir leid and then add a comma and add thus after it, and then I will add the second sentence, which is Ich zu spät komme. And you see that now the verb which is komme goes to the last position because we have used the connector thus. So you see that how I have now changed the sentence from an A1 level sentence to a more advanced A2 level sentence. Now let's go to the second point, in which we have to tell why are you late. So for this I can simply write Ich bin im Stau. I am in traffic. Ich bin im Stau. Then the third point is that you have to suggest a new place and another time for the meetup. So for this I can write Sollen wir uns 18 Uhr in der Bibliothek treffen? Should we meet each other at 1800 hours in the library? Now this sentence is also fine, but maybe I want to make it even better. So for that, I will again open my rough sheet and take a look if there is any other concept which I can use to improve this sentence. And I see that I can use the relative Satz to extend this sentence. So what I will do is that I will add a comma and then I will write the relative Satz, which is die in der Stadtmitte ist. So now the sentence becomes: Sollen wir uns 18 Uhr in der Bibliothek treffen, die in der Stadtmitte ist, which is in the city center. So you see that over here I have used the relative pronoun die, and because of this the verb goes to the end. Now, in case you are wondering why we have used the relative pronoun die, but in the sentence before Bibliothek is der Bibliothek, so this is because der before Bibliothek is the dative for feminine. And we have used this because we have used the Wechsel preposition in. So when we use the preposition in to talk about location, then the noun after it comes in dative. So that's why we have used there. So now we have 28 words, which fulfill our requirement of 20 to 30 words. So now I can write my ending, which is Liebe Grüße, and then my name, which is Usama. And this will be my SMS. Now one more point over here is that if you think that the last sentence which I have written with relative Satz is too complex, and you think that if you write this then there is a chance of a mistake, then I would suggest not to complicate it. And in this case, what you can do is that you can simply remove the relative Satz and you say Sollen wir uns 18 Uhr in der Bibliothek treffen? So this is now a question. And after that, you can write Passt das für dich? Which means, does that suit you? So this is also fine. And if you take a look, we now have 26 words, which is also fine. And we have used the A2 concepts as well as covered all 3 points. And remember that when you write an SMS or a letter or an email in the exam, then it is more important that you cover all 3 points. So you should use A2 concepts, but don't make it too complicated that you make mistakes. So now we have written our SMS, and if you are writing this on a rough sheet, then in the exam you have to transfer it to the Antwortbogen, which is the answer sheet. And this is how the answer sheet would look like. So you will have Teil 1 and then a separate section for Teil 2, which is part 2. And since an SMS is Teil 1, so that's why I will write it under Teil 1. Now before we go to the second sample test, let's go back to the same SMS that we just wrote. And let's write it in a different way. So over here you see I have the starting, which is Hallo Nina. And then, as you know, the first point is that we have to write an apology. So I write Es tut mir leid. And then I open my rough sheet and I am going through the concepts that are there, and I see the connector while over here. And then I think of a sentence which I can write with while, which also addresses the points that we have in the question. So I can say, Ich komme 30 Minuten später. I will come 30 minutes later. Weil ich den Bus verpasst habe. Because I have missed the bus. And this is also a very good sentence because you have used an A2 grammar concept to explain your point. And for the rest, I can use the same sentences that we saw earlier, which are Sollen wir uns 18 Uhr in der Bibliothek treffen? Passt das für dich? And this SMS is 28 words, so this is also fine. And then I can write my ending, which is Liebe Grüße. So you see how helpful this rough sheet is? That if you have written the A2 grammar concepts on this sheet, then it gives you more options because you have all the concepts in front of you and you can always take a look at them and decide what kind of sentence you can make. And since you have written down the concepts on a sheet, that's why you will not forget the concepts, because it is possible in the exam you are under stress and you might not remember what are the different concepts or what are the different connectors that you can use to write sentences. So that's why I told you that the first thing that you do in the exam is that you write down all the A2 concepts on the rough sheet. And then you can use them when you write your SMS or email to make better sentences. So now let's go to sample test number 2 and let's write another SMS. So we have the question, Sie haben eine neue Wohnung. You have a new apartment. Schreiben Sie eine SMS an Ihrem Freund Frank. So friend over here means a male friend. So what do we have to write in the SMS? So the first point is Adresse der Wohnung, which means the address of the apartment. Now over here, the article there has been used. Now this is the genitive article, which is used to show belonging or possession. So you should know a little bit about the genitive case and how it is used, because even if you don't use it in the answer, it is possible that it is used in the question. So if you know what it means, then you will be able to understand the question properly and then also answer it correctly. So the first point is that we have to write the address of the apartment. Then the second point is, sagen Sie, warum Ihnen die Wohnung gefällt. You have to tell why you like the apartment. So gefällt means to like. So this is the conjugation of the verb gefallen. Then the third point is, laden Sie ihn in die neue Wohnung ein. So you have to invite him in the new apartment. So we have einladen over here, which means to invite. And ihn is the personal pronoun over here, which means him. And this also has the same requirements, so you should write 20 to 30 words and zu allen 3 Punkten schreiben. You have to write to all the 3 points. So let's take a look at the solution. So I will start my SMS simply by writing Hallo Frank. So the first point is Adresse der Wohnung. So I have to write the address of the apartment. Now sometimes it is possible that you cannot think of a sentence in German. So what you can do is that you can think of a sentence in English. So for example, I say that I want to start this SMS by writing, I have found a new apartment which is located in city center. And I also have my rough sheet in front of me. So I see that if I want to translate this into German, then I will have to use the relative Satz, because I am giving more information about my new apartment. So for this, I will need the relative Satz. So now it becomes easier for me to translate this into German. So I will write, Ich habe eine neue Wohnung gefunden, which means I have found a new apartment. So I have written the first part. And then for the second part, I will use the relative Satz. So I will say, die im Stadtzentrum liegt, which is located in the city center. So with this sentence, I have told Frank about the address of my apartment. Now one important point that I want to mention over here is that when you use this method of thinking in English and then translating it into German, then you have to be careful, because sometimes the translation from English to German or German to English is a little different. So it might not be a word-to-word translation. So this is something that you have to keep in mind. And many people also say that you should not translate from English to German. But I think that sometimes it is easier to think about a sentence in English as compared to German. So that's why you can use this method, but just be careful so that you don't make a mistake. So now we go to the second point, which is that you have to tell why you like it. So for this, I can write, Sie ist groß und hell und das gefällt mir. It is big and has a lot of light and I like that. Now this sentence is also fine, but it is an A1 level sentence. So let's take a look at our rough sheet and see if we can make a better sentence. So again, I go through the concepts and I see that we have the connector while. So I can use while to make a better sentence. So I rewrite this sentence with while as Ich finde sie schön, weil sie groß und hell ist. I find it beautiful because it is big and has a lot of light. So hell means light. Then the third point is that you have to invite him in the new apartment. So for this I write, Hast du am Samstag Zeit? Do you have time on Saturday? Dann komm mal vorbei. Then come by or visit. So vorbeikommen is also a trennbare or separable verb, which means to come by. And now you see that we have 29 words in our SMS. We have used A2 concepts and covered all the 3 points. So this is good. So now I can simply write my ending, which is Liebe Grüße, and then my first name, which is Usama. Now before we go to the next part, let me just show you what are the different options that you have or how you can rewrite the last part of this SMS in another way. So if you take a look at the last 2 sentences over here, then you see that this is a kind of condition that we have given over here. So we have asked him, do you have time on Saturday? If yes, then you should visit. Now let's see if we can write this sentence in a different way. So for this, again, I open my rough sheet where I have the A2 grammar concepts written, and I see whether I can use a concept to write this sentence in a different way. So I go through the concepts and I see that I have when over here, which means if, and this is used for conditional sentences. So I will use when to rewrite this last part. So I can rewrite it as Wenn du am Samstag Zeit hast, dann komm mal vorbei. If you have time on Saturday, then come by. So even after using when, we have 30 words, which is also fine. And suppose now I am happy with my answer, then I can transfer it to the Antwortbogen under Teil 1. So this is how you will write an SMS in the exam. Now let's take a look at the second part of the Schreiben exam, which is writing an email. And this email will be a formal email. So a formal email is written to Firmen, Behörden, or Schule, which are companies, offices, or school, etc., such as Hotel, Sprachschule, Touristeninformation. It is also written to persons with title, such as Herr or Frau. So for example, if you have to write an email to Herr Fischer or Frau Fischer, then it will be a formal email. And we also write a formal email to people you don't know very well. For example, some person at an institute or office or someone you have not met. Now let's take a look at how to start a formal email. What is the unready? So if you are writing to one male whose name is Herr Fischer, then you will start your email by saying Sehr geehrter Herr Fischer, which means Dear Mr. Fischer. So you see that we have used the ending er in geehrter, and you will also add a comma at the end. If you are writing it to one female whose name is Frau Fischer, then you will say Sehr geehrte Frau Fischer. So in this case, you have the ending a, and you also have the comma at the end. Now if you are writing to someone you don't know, for example someone at an institute or an office, then you can write Sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, which means dear ladies and gentlemen. So this is used when the person is unknown. Now if you have more than one person, for example you have two males such as Herr Fischer and Herr Müller to whom you are writing, then you will start it by saying Sehr geehrter Herr Fischer und Sehr geehrter Herr Müller. So you will use the ending er with both the persons, and the s in the second Sehr will be small, so it will not be capital. If you are writing to two females such as Frau Fischer and Frau Müller, then you will write Sehr geehrte Frau Fischer und Sehr geehrte Frau Müller. So again you see that the s in Sehr for the second person will be small. If you are writing to one male and one female such as Herr Müller and Frau Müller, then you can write it as Sehr geehrter Herr Müller und sehr geehrte Frau Müller. So you see we have used the ending er with Herr Müller and the ending a with Frau Müller. And over here again you see that the s for the second person is small. So this is how you can start a formal email or letter. Now how will you end a formal email or letter? So for this you will write mit freundlichen Grüßen, which means with friendly greetings. And over here the first letter of mit and Grüßen will be capital, and you won't have any comma at the end. Then in the line after it you will write your full name. So in my case I will write Usama Ehsan. So mit freundlichen Grüßen Usama Ehsan. So this is how you can end the formal email or letter. Now let's take a look at the personal pronoun that we will use. So since this is a formal email, that's why we will use the formal way, which is Sie. And you will use the personal pronoun Sie for both singular and plural. And the verb forms when you use the personal pronoun Sie are brauchen, kommen, machen, and so on. So these are the verb conjugations that you will use. So now we have all the information that we need. So let's take a look at sample test number 1 for writing an email. So we have the question, Ihr Chef, Herr Müller, hat nächste Woche Geburtstag und lädt Sie zu seiner Feier ein. So your boss, Mr. Müller, has a birthday next week and he has invited you to the celebration or the birthday party. So chef means boss. So Ihr Chef is your boss. And you see since it is written Herr Müller, so this shows that this is a formal email. So then it says, Schreiben Sie Herrn Müller eine E-Mail. Write Mr. Müller an email. And what do we have to write in this email? So the first point is, Danken Sie für die Einladung und schreiben Sie, dass Sie kommen. Thank him for the invitation and write to him that you will come. So danken Sie means to thank. And you see over here in the question they have also used das, which is an A2 connector. So that's why it is also important for you to know these concepts, because they will be helpful for you to understand the questions in the exam. Then the next point is informieren Sie, dass Sie jemanden mitbringen. Inform him that you will bring someone along with you. So jemanden over here means somebody, and mitbringen means to bring along. And this is also a trennbare verb. But since we have used das over here, that's why it goes to the end in combined form. And the last point is bitten Sie eine Wegbeschreibung zur Feier. Request him or ask him for the directions to the party or the celebration. So bitten Sie means to request, and Wegbeschreibung means the directions. Now the requirements for this email are that you have to write 30 to 40 Wörter, so 30 to 40 words, so a little bit more than the SMS, and zu allen 3 Punkten schreiben, and you have to cover all the 3 points. So now let's write an answer to this email. So we will simply start by writing Sehr geehrter Herr Müller. So this is how you start a formal email when you are writing to a single person mail. So the first point is that you have to thank him for the invitation, and you have to write him that you will come. So for this, I can simply start by saying Vielen Dank für die Einladung. Thank you very much for the invitation. Now over here, again you see that I have started with a small letter. Then I can say Es hat mich sehr gefreut. It made me very happy. Es hat mich sehr gefreut. And then I can extend this sentence by writing und ich komme gern. I will happily come. So with this, we have covered point number 1. But suppose I want to write this in a different way. So I can take a look at my rough sheet and see if there is any concept which I can use over here. And I see that maybe I can use werden, because one use of werden is to talk about the future. So instead of saying ich komme gern, I can write ich würde gern kommen, which also has the same meaning. But it is another way to write about the future. And you see, when we use werden, then the verb goes to the end. So in my case, I say, okay, I want to use werden. So that's why I write ich würde gern kommen. Now the second point is that you have to inform him that you will bring someone along. Now again, I have my rough sheet in front of me, and I can think of a sentence which I can make using one of the concepts that I have written over here. So to cover this point, I can make a sentence with damit, which means so that. So I write a sentence. Ich bringe meine Frau mit. I will bring my wife along with me. Damit sie auch kennenlernen kann. So that she can also get to know you. So kennenlernen means get to know. And you see that I have used sie 2 times over here. So the first sie with the small s is the personal pronoun for the Frau, and the second one with the capital S is for Herr Müller. So it means so that she can also get to know you. So that's why I have used sie twice over here. Now the third point is that you have to ask him for the directions to the celebration or to the party. So this is a request. Now whenever you want to make a request, then you can do it by saying Könnten Sie mir bitte die Adresse zur Feier schicken? Which means, could you please send me the address to the celebration or to the party? So over here I have used könnten Sie. So this is the conjunctive zwei form, and this is a more polite way to make a request. So you can just memorize this as is, and whenever you have to make a request, just use könnten Sie. You can also use können Sie, but if you use könnten Sie, then it is better because this is an A2 concept. Now if we take a look at the answer, then we see that we have 35 words, and we have used the A2 concepts, and we have also covered all 3 points. So we can end it by saying mit freundlichen Grüßen, Usama Ehsan. Now again, just for your practice and to show you what are the different options that you have, let's take a look at our rough sheet again and see if we can write the last sentence in another way. And when I take a look at the connectors, I see that I can rewrite the last sentence using while. So if I want to write it with while, then I will replace the question mark at the end with a comma, and then I will write weil ich sie nicht habe, because I do not have it. So now the whole sentence becomes Könnten Sie mir bitte die Adresse zur Feier schicken, weil ich sie nicht habe? Could you please send me the address to the celebration or to the party, because I do not have it? And with this, we have 40 words, which is also fine. So you don't have to write it like this in the exam, but I just wanted to show you what are the different options and possibilities that you have when you have written the different concepts on the rough sheet. Because you have it in front of you and you can think of writing the sentences in a better way. And when you are finished with the answer, then you can transfer it to the Antwortbogen, but this time you will write it under Teil 2. Now let's take a look at another email question so that you can practice it and understand this better. So this time we have a question. Sie haben ein Hotelzimmer reserviert. You have reserved a hotel room. So over here we have haben at the second position, which is a helping verb, and reserviert means reserved, which is a participle zwei form. So another word for reserve can be gebucht, which means booked. So this can also be used. Then in the next sentence it says Eigentlich wollten Sie am Freitag anreisen. Actually, you wanted to arrive on Friday. So eigentlich means actually and anreisen means to arrive. Aber nun kommen Sie erst am Sonntag an. But now you will arrive on Sunday. So nun means now. Then we have ankommen, which is a separable verb, which also means to arrive. And we have another word over here, which is erst. So this means only or earliest. So this sentence means actually you wanted to arrive on Friday, but now you will arrive on Sunday. So then, schreiben Sie eine E-Mail an Frau Bader vom Hotel. You have to write an email to Miss Bader from the hotel. And you see that since you are going to write to Frau Bader, that's why it will be a formal email. Now what do you have to write in the email? So the first point is erklären Sie den Grund für Ihre E-Mail. Explain the reason for your email. So Grund means reason. Then the second point is informieren Sie, wie viele Tage Sie bleiben möchten. You have to inform her how many days you would like to stay. And the last point is fragen Sie nach einem neuen Preisangebot. Ask her for a new price. So fragen Sie nach means to ask about, and Preisangebot means price offer or simply price. And the requirements are the same. So you have to write 30 to 40 words and you have to cover all the 3 points. So let's take a look at the solution to this question. Now since we are writing to Frau Bader, that's why we can start by saying sehr geehrte Frau Bader. Now the first point is that you have to tell why you are writing this email. So you have to give a reason. So I will open my rough sheet to see if I can use something from here to write the reason. And a connector that we can use to give a reason is weil, which means because. So I will use it and I will write the sentence. Ich schreibe Ihnen, weil ich ein Hotelzimmer bei Ihnen gebucht habe. I am writing to you because I have booked a hotel room by you. So bei Ihnen means by you or at your hotel in this case. Then I will write Leider kann ich am Freitag nicht anreisen und komme erst am Sonntag an. Unfortunately, I cannot arrive on Friday and will arrive only on Sunday. So leider means unfortunately. So now I have told her the reason why I am writing this email. Now the next point is that I have to tell her how long will I be staying. So for this I can write Danach möchte ich bis Donnerstag bleiben. After that I would like to stay till Thursday. So from Sunday till Thursday. Then the next point is you have to ask her about a new price. So this is also a request. So for this I will again use könnten Sie. So I will say könnten Sie mir bitte ein neues Preisangebot schicken. Could you please send me a new price or price offer? Now in these kind of sentences where you have adjectives, you just have to be careful about the adjective endings. For example, over here we have used Neues with the ending as because Angebot is das Angebot. So this is also a point where a lot of people make mistakes and can be a little confusing for people. So whenever you use them, just check that you have used the correct adjective endings. And now we have covered all the 3 points and we have 38 words in total. So I think this is fine. Then I can simply end my email by saying mit freundlichen Grüßen, Usama Ehsan. Now you see that I have used A2 concepts over here and I have also covered all the 3 points. And as I told you earlier, that covering all the 3 points is more important than trying to use as many A2 concepts as possible. So that's why I will not complicate this further and I will transfer this to the Antwortbogen. So this is how you can write an email in the A2 exam. Now let me give you some different helpful tips which will be useful for you in the exam. So the first point is how to identify formal or informal. So in A2 it is quite simple because the first part is usually an SMS which will be informal and the second part is an email which will be formal, but still I will tell you how to identify it so that if there is a change you don't get confused and you are able to use the correct starting and endings. So you can identify whether the text that you have to write is formal if you see the words Herr or Frau in the question. So in the examples that we saw, we had Herr Müller and Frau Bader. So from these we knew that this is a formal email. The email or letter will be formal if the person is unknown, so you don't know who you are writing to, or if you see the name of an office, institute, school, etc. Then this means that the email or letter that you have to write will be formal. On the other hand, the text that you have to write will be informal if you see the first name in the question. So for example, Nina or Frank. If in the question they say that you have to write it to a friend or friendin, then this also means that it will be informal. Or if you see the words Nachbar, Nachbarin, Kollege or Kollegin, then this also means that it will be an informal text. But in this case, it will only be informal when there is no Herr or Frau with the name. If there is Herr or Frau with the name, then it will be formal. Now let me give you some other important tips for the exam. So the first tip, which I have already mentioned and which is the most important one, is that write anything important on the rough sheet. So this means A2 concepts, any important sentences that you have memorized, any important vocabulary that you think you can use, write it on the rough sheet at the start. Because when you write it on the rough sheet, then you don't have to worry about remembering these things and you can focus on the exam. And whenever you need it, you can take a look at the rough sheet and then use it. The second tip is that use A2 concepts only where it makes sense and don't complicate it. So you don't have to use connectors or other concepts in every sentence. If you use one or two concepts, that is enough. And another very important point over here is that you must keep a lookout for the time that you have remaining in the exam. And don't spend too much time rewriting sentences and trying to make them better. Because if you keep rewriting sentences, then it is possible that at the end you don't have enough time remaining and then you are under stress to complete the exam and you make a mistake. So that's why I say use A2 concepts only where it makes sense. And don't try to overuse them because it will only cause problems for you. The third tip is that learn the vocabulary. Because in A2, if you know the vocabulary, then you will be able to make better sentences. So this is very important. And if you don't know a word, then use words from the question. Sometimes it is difficult to find an alternative word or another verb. So in this case, it is fine if you use the words from the question. Some people say that you should use different words, but I think that it is better to use the words from the question instead of writing the wrong word. So that's why try to learn the vocabulary, but if you still don't know a word, then use the words from the question. The next tip is that use words for which you know the article, such as there, thee, or thus. Because if you use the incorrect article, then you will lose marks. Now, if you are using a word from the question, then it is also possible to find the article, and that is by looking at the endings. So let me give you an example. So over here, we have the email that we saw earlier, and suppose that I don't know the article for the word fire. So if I want to find the article, then I will take a look at the word before it, which is seiner. And you see that this has the ending er. So this means that it has the article there. But this is not enough, because you also have to check if there is a preposition being used. And in this case, we are using the preposition zu, which is a dative preposition. So now if we take a look at the German articles, then we see that in case of feminine nouns, the dative article is there. So this means that the word fire is a feminine and it has the article the. So this is a way in which you can find the articles of different nouns which are used in the question. So this was tip number 4. And the last tip is, if you are having problems in thinking about sentences, then write in English and then translate. And this is what we also did in one of our solutions. So you see that I wrote in English, I have found a new apartment which is located in city center and then translated it into German. But as I mentioned earlier, be careful when you use this because sometimes the translation cannot be done word for word and it is different. So these are the different tips which will be helpful for you in the exam. Now let's take a look at different sentences that you can use in different situations. So I will give you some sentences which you can use for multiple topics. So let's first of all take a look at some sentences for apologizing, because it is possible that a topic comes where you have to apologize for something. So for apologizing, you can use "Es tut mir leid," which means I am sorry. You can use it alone or you can use it with "das." So you can say "Es tut mir leid, das," and then you give more detail. For example, you can say "Es tut mir leid, dass ich zu spät komme," or "ich nicht kommen kann," and so on. Now another similar sentence can be "Entschuldigung, dass," and then you give more detail. For example, "Entschuldigung, dass ich zu spät komme," or "dass ich nicht kommen kann," and so on. Another way to apologize is that you can say "Entschuldigung für," which means sorry for, and after that you will give the reason, such as "Entschuldigung für die Verspätung," for the delay, or "für das Missverständnis," for the misunderstanding. So these are different sentences that you can use. And these can also be used as starting sentences. So you can start your SMS or email with these sentences. But when you use them as starting sentences, then keep in mind that you have to start with a small letter. Now let's take a look at some more starting sentences which you can use when you have to give a reason why you are writing this email or SMS. So for this you can use "Ich schreibe Ihnen weil," and then you give the reason. So I am writing to you because. Another sentence can be "Ich möchte Ihnen mitteilen dass," and then you give more detail. I would like to share with you that, and then you give some more detail. Or you can say "Ich möchte Sie informieren dass," which means I would like to inform you that, and then you give some more detail. Now in some questions, they might ask you to suggest an alternative. So for example, suggest a new place or time. So in this case, you can use a sentence "Sollen wir uns and then you give the time, then you give the place, treffen. Should we meet at time and at place? So this will be a question. Another way to say this is "Wir können uns time place treffen," which means we can meet at time this and place this. But in this case, you will not use a question mark. Now a shorter version for these can be "Treffen wir uns time place?" Do we meet at this time at this place? So this is a shorter version which you can also use. Now one more important point over here is that you see that I have used before the place over here, and this is a preposition which is used with masculine and neutral nouns. So the place after should be a masculine or neutral. So that's why I would suggest that you just memorize a fixed time and place. So for example, you can memorize that whenever I want to give the time, I will always say 18 Uhr, and for the place I will always say Bahnhof. So if there is no place or time specified in the question, then you can simply use this time and place. So if I use this, then the sentence becomes "Sollen wir uns 18 Uhr am Bahnhof treffen?" And when I use the second sentence, then it will be "Wir können uns 18 Uhr am Bahnhof treffen." So just memorize a time and place and just use it in the exam. Now in most of the questions, you have to give a suggestion at the end. But if you still want, you can use some other ending sentences after giving a suggestion. So some ending sentences that you can use for informal case can be "Passt das für dich?" Is that okay for you? Or "Geht das?" Is that okay? So you can use these sentences after giving a suggestion if you don't have enough words. So these can be used as filler sentences. Now if you want to give a reason for a delay, then you can simply say "Ich bin im Stau." I am in traffic. Or you can say "Ich hab den Bus verpasst." I missed the bus. Another way to say this can be "Der Bus hat Verspätung." But in case you are invited and you are not going to go or you are not coming, then you can use the sentences or "Ich habe einen Arzttermin." I have a doctor's appointment. So if it is not specified in the question, then just use one of these reasons, because if you try to make up another reason, it is possible that you use the wrong article or make a mistake. Now you can use these sentences with while as well. So let's take an example. So I have the sentence "Ich bin krank," and when I write it with while, then it will be Ich komme nicht, weil ich krank bin. I will not come because I am ill. And you see, because we have used while, the verb will go to the last position. Now, if someone invites you or you receive an invitation in the question, then as an answer, you can use the starting sentence, Vielen Dank für die Einladung. So thank you very much for the invitation. And after this, you can use the sentence, Es hat mich sehr gefreut. I am very happy. So no matter what the invitation is, you can use these sentences. Then, if you are going to go to the event or you accept the invitation, then you can use Ich komme gern or Ich würde gern kommen. So either of these is fine. But in case you are not going to attend the event or you are not going, then you can simply say Leider kann ich nicht kommen, weil, and then just give any of the reasons that we saw earlier. So these are sentences that you can use if someone invites you or you receive an invitation. Now if you want to make a request, then for that you can use Könnten Sie mir bitte and then the thing, geben or schicken. Could you please give or send me the thing? Könnten Sie mir bitte mehr Informationen zu? And then topic, schicken. Could you please send me more infos on the topic? Now in this case, remember that after zu, you will use the dative article because zu is a dative preposition. Another way to make a request can be Könntest du or könnten Sie mir bitte helfen? Could you please help me? And in all of these examples, you see that I have used the conjunctive zwei, which is a more polite way to make a request. Now in case of formal emails or letters, you can also use the following ending sentences if you don't have enough words. So suppose you don't have 30 to 40 words, then you can use the sentences Vielen Dank im Voraus für Ihre Hilfe. Thanks in advance for your help. Or if you are waiting for an answer, then you can say Ich freue mich auf Ihre Antwort. I will be happy for your answer. So these are different sentences which you can use in different situations. Now before we end the lesson, let me give you some steps for the exam. So these are steps which I would suggest that you follow so that you don't make a mistake in your final answer. So the first step would be that you should write the solutions on a rough page. Because if you write it on a rough page, then you can make corrections, you can rewrite sentences and so on. Then when you are finished with the solution, then you should check that all the nouns are capital. So this is very important because in German, the nouns are always written with a capital letter. After that, you should check that the position of verbs is correct. So it should be either the second position or last position, depending on whether you have used a connector or not. Then you should also check that the verb conjugations are correct. And when you have done all of this and you are satisfied with your answer, then you should transfer it to the Antwortbogen, because the examiner will only mark what you have written on the Antwortbogen or the answer sheet. So these are different tips that I have for you for the exam, and by following these tips and instructions which I have given you in the video, I am sure that you will do well in the exam and get very good marks. So I hope that this video was helpful for you. If you have any questions or feedback, please let me know in the comments below. If you have an exam coming up, I wish you all the best. So thank you very much for your time, and we will see each other in the next video.